I can write a book on how to hire great leaders and fail them. And if you think you belong to the same category, then today's Workplace Dynamics podcast is for you. I started counting over the last, let's say, 10, 15 years, the number of senior leaders I hired and how many we let go or we think they failed us. And as I started counting, once it crossed double digits, I got depressed. I said, okay, let me reflect back on what happened versus how many. And of course, with age and gray hair now, I think it's time to make those confessions in front of camera. And I asked myself, when I hired them, what did I look in them? The romanticism of, wow, did you meet this guy? I think when it comes to sales, some of the people I had, I remember in sales, they said, oh, this guy will rock the market. You see the knowledge, the network he or she brings in, kind of statements we made to each other. And the initial phase was all like that. We talked about some of the leaders internally as well that, look, let's do the best onboarding. Let's ensure that all the boxes are ticked in the initial days. And we were in love with some of them in the initial phase. But as days passed by, with some of them, I can recollect the whispers, which typically happens in any large organizations, which they go round, and they came to me as well. Hey, look, this guy, what he tells the client and what he tells us are two different things. You know what? Comes always late to meetings. Very poor in Salesforce implementation, doesn't document the meetings at all. And things like that. And some of them are trivial, but we feel they're not okay in our own organization. And over a period of time, these things became more irritable when we see there are no results coming. And that's when we possibly, in our own way, the vibes get to the person whom we have hired. And eventually, all the things that we didn't see in them, obviously, during interviews, which come into light later, is something that starts haunting us. Let's say we hired them for a set of skills which attracted us to him or her. We discover, like we discover any new partnership, things that we didn't look into them while we're dating them. And that's how, when I look back honestly with many of the leaders, I think 90% of them, I think we failed them. But in one of the organizations I worked, they had this nice framework, which was borrowed from GE's famous simulation exercise, where after 3 months or so, with the facilitator, mostly driven by HR, they would sit with the direct reportees and the leader in charge and sort of go through the feedback session. It's not 360, but more or less the experiences versus expectations of each other. And through that exercise, we were able to bridge some gaps and we could see which are the areas to work together. But one gap I saw in that assimilation exercise is the focus was all about the leader. How the leader was interacting, how the leader can do better. So the feedback was coming from mostly sometimes bosses, but that exercise was mostly driven by the reportees. And I wish, when I go back in time and when even I was subject to such an exercise, I felt if the organization owned some of the leaders whom they hired a little more. Let's say the bunch of people who are responsible to hire the person, which is, let's say, HR, the supervisor, and the reportees. Let's say all of them are equally responsible stakeholders. And if they came together and say, hey, the person we hired is our responsibility. These are things the person brings to the table. These are things who we are as an organization, the behaviors, the routines, which makes us, sometimes we get so solid on our own rituals. We've fallen in love so much with our rituals that we sort of do not allow the new person to understand and learn them. And through that comes the breakthrough. And somehow, very clearly, we sort of start passing that message to the person. Right. So I wish, all these stakeholders who were part of this ecosystem in hiring and sort of working with a person, can we collectively come together and say, we hired this person, this is a responsibility, and these are the things that we will discuss in open, and possibly come together again, maybe after the first assimilation exercise is over, and say, these are the parts that we have covered and these are the parts we could not cover, and maybe the new discoveries that we can keep talking to each other collectively. I know one-to-one we try to give feedbacks, but I know this is easier said than done because we think after 3 months, 6 months, the pressure of the role gets to us, to the person, and we're all busy. We're saying, look, what is the person doing? And the focus is entirely about the person. And we all know senior leaders take time to understand the culture and perform, but how do we assimilate better than most organizations do. So my invitation today to you is, how do you assimilate your new leader in your organization? Is there something you guys collectively do to bring the person on board better, or you think it's completely left to the leader to adapt to your own world? Let me know what you think.